do you believe that the NBA is too predictable in general when you see these guys make these moves to get on championship contending teams just to go for a title for the last half of the season and into the playoffs?
I mean, yes and no. I don't think it's staged to the point or to the way that I think you were leading the question. I don't think it's anything of that sort. I think that you have to kind of use your common sense here and say, well, they're both not doing very well on the teams that they're on. They're both useful to some extent. They're both older, and the two best teams in the league need help. So it's like it makes sense. And neither of them have championships. So it's like they would like a ring too, to say, like, hey, oh, I went and got one. Even if they only play half of a season, they can say that they have a ring, they won a championship, and they can kind of hang it up saying, knowing that, they didn't just play for the money. They don't have to live with that regret. That option to play with a good team kind of came back because we all know Blake Griffin had the opportunity to re-sign in LA with the Clippers to try to run it back, and he just chose to left. And we all know Andre Drummond had the opportunity to opt out of his contract this season to go and sign with a better team, but he didn't want to pass up the money. So these particular players, you know what I mean? Like in LaMarcus Aldridge, we know that him going to San Antonio, knowing Tim Duncan was on his way out, we didn't know the combination that was going to happen with the whatever players going to come through. Kawhi ends up leaving. DeMar DeRozan gets inserted. The team is pretty much never the same again. And, Greg Popovich is in and out of the lineup between Tim Duncan having to take the starting role or the coaching role due to health issues and whatnot. So, I mean, San Antonio kind of was also in another situation of, well, if he opts in, then we have to pay him this money, which he did because LaMarcus already knew that if he doesn't, he'll never get the money that he was going to be owed again. So it's not that surprising to me, man. I really just, when you see a big name, you see the buyout, you're like, all right, where's his best chance to win? Bam, bam, Brooklyn, LA. It's just, it sucks because it kind of makes the NBA almost unappealing. And I know a lot of other teams are like, well, that's not fair. They're not thinking business wise. Why would I go to a team that's got to struggle through the West or struggle through the East when I can just go to the top of one of the two? Like I don't have to play as hard. I'm part of a better team. It's expected because the two top players in the league are respectively on these other teams. No disrespect to Philly being the number one seed, but like Brooklyn is favored for a reason because you have the three-headed monster of KD, Kyrie, and Harden, and you obviously have the defending champion LA Lakers favored because they have LeBron James and AD. Why would they not want to go play with them and make their lives easier? So, to answer your question, yes and no. But at the end of the day, it is what it is because they both knew that they wanted to compete, and their best chance was those two teams.
I think it depends on a certain extent to just your general awareness of the teams that play here. When you look at the Brooklyn Nets, for example, with the signings of Blake Griffin and LaMarcus Aldridge, you and I have been paying attention to the Nets the entire season, and we both discussed that they had some major depth issues after trading for James Harden and the amount of capital that was given up in the process to acquire James. So it didn't surprise me that the Nets made these moves to shore up their overall depth on their team because they definitely needed it. And with the Lakers, with Drummond, look, they haven't had Anthony Davis in the lineup, like we said, for 2 months. And when you add somebody like Drummond into the mix, it definitely goes a long way into at least filling the void that Anthony Davis had while he was on the roster before he got hurt. So it does help the Lakers out a little bit. But if you're looking at this from a casual fan perspective, I'm not even saying that you have to have an in-depth knowledge of the league. Just somebody that kind of loosely pays attention to the NBA by and large. You could think that, okay, Brooklyn and the Lakers are probably two of the best teams simply because Brooklyn has KD, Kyrie, and James Harden all on one team. The Lakers are the NBA champions from last year. They've got LeBron and AD. And these three guys in Blake Griffin, LaMarcus Aldridge, and Andre Drummond, they went to two of the best teams. One in the Eastern Conference with Drummond, excuse me, not Drummond, with Aldridge and Blake Griffin, and then Drummond to the Lakers. So I want to say that it's just, it does give the sense that it is predictable simply because those guys ended up going to the best teams, you could say, in the conferences. Now, the Lakers aren't currently the best team in the Western Conference right now. It's Utah. But everybody expects that once AD and LeBron return, that they're going to be in championship form by the time the playoffs roll around. So they're not really a team that people want to see in the first or second round in the playoffs. And then in the later rounds of the playoffs, it's even worse. It's just, I can understand if people are loosely following the NBA thinking that, oh yeah, this is totally, I'm not going to say it's rigged from their perspective, but it's just like, yeah, go figure. Like these guys are going to the two best teams in the respective conferences, even though the Lakers don't have the best record. I can understand where somebody can make the argument and show probably a little bit of displeasure in those three guys going to the two top teams. But I mean, the Western Conference is still competitive. You still got Utah at the top spot. You got the Suns and you got the Clippers. So we'll see what happens, but I can understand where there's some displeasure that comes along with these signings just because of how predictable it is.
It's not even that it gets predictable. People have to understand Andre Drummond's case is different. Andre Drummond's younger. Andre Drummond has a lot of years left, God willing, to be as productive as he's been. LaMarcus Aldridge, was there another market for him? Like what? Why would he
Miami.
Want to take a? Okay, Miami, but how is Miami doing right this second? I mean, is Miami struggling?
They're struggling.
Why would he want to go to another struggling team?
I'm just basing that off of the report that there was major interest from Miami side saying that they wanted to go after Aldridge. And then I think Adrian Wojnarowski dropped the bomb a couple of days ago saying that he's going to Brooklyn. So it did surprise me a little bit, simply just because off of the initial reports after the buyout took place in San Antonio, that Miami wasn't even in the mix and that he ends up going to Brooklyn. I was just kind of surprised by that.
We'll get the full details as to what happened probably later in the season as to why he chose Brooklyn, or what happened that he didn't go to Miami. But the point I'm trying to make is here. So Andre Drummond had a lot of a greater market for his talents. Dallas was looking at him, the Lakers were looking at him, Brooklyn, and several other teams, right? So Dallas is currently sitting right now at the 8th spot. We just went on a 2-game skid. We lost to the Pacers and we lost to the Pelicans this weekend. Luka Doncic did not play in either game, and Kristaps Porzingis did not play in the Pelicans game. Regardless, we lost 2 games in a row. Why would Andre Drummond want to go to an 8-seeded team with a team that's battling injuries, inconsistencies on the defensive end? Can we give him money long term? Yes, but if he has an opportunity to play for the Lakers right now, bro, I'm not even looking at Dallas right now. Like, I know I'm going to get a payday after the season because I'm still Andre Drummond and I still bring down damn near 14 boards a game. If I want to go and get a halfy of a ring, a semi-ring, this is what I call acquisitions this late in the season, I'm going to go get it because that's hardware that I can retire with and say, at least I got it. All right, let me go make some more money. So, it's their best chance to win, like you said. You know what I'm saying? These players don't want to suffer. They don't want to buy out and then go suffer again. They don't want to go get bought out and go to some shitty ass team and be on a worse situation that they were before.
Well, I think to a certain extent too, and this may have some undertones that go along with it. But look, if Drummond goes to the Lakers and he's a major piece in them winning back-to-back titles this year, that's going to bode extremely well for him in free agency because it'll maximize his value. So he could be looking at a possible, like you said, another big payday. He's only 27, 28 years old, so he still has some good years left in the league for what he can do. So if he goes out, averages maybe 10, 15 points a game, maybe averages 10 rebounds a game, averages a double-double altogether, and is a major piece into why the Lakers win back-to-back championships, I'm just saying hypothetically, that's going to bode very well for him in free agency, and he's going to get probably somewhere in between probably a $25 to $30 million a year contract. For how long, I don't know, but we know
teams are willing to pay it because they need it.
Yeah, but it sets him up very well for the future, especially for the next probably 3 to 4 years if he goes out and balls out for the Lakers, specifically in Drummond's case.